Curtis, would you like to say a few words about BCRP? This would be a great time if you don't mind. Uh-oh. Camera time. Sorry. Here you go.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. We've got a couple of things coming up. This next Monday on the 23rd is our informational meeting, and we're going to have Will Zeck. He's with the Texas Film Commission. He's going to be coming and giving us an overview of the Texas Film Commission and the resources that they offer for supporting film, television, and other image resources. And so it should be pretty interesting. I know that there's already questions that will be asked of him, and so, but anyway, it should be interesting. And so it's going to be at the office at 443 Highway 71 West, right there by Harbor Freight. The main thing that I wanted to bring up was we have set up our Boots and Barbecue. It's our fundraiser, big fundraiser. It allows us to be able to be in our office. And we have got a wonderful speaker that's going to be there. Her name is Sarah Gonzalez. She's pretty awesome and feisty. And so we're excited about her being there. She is with Blaze TV. She does, she writes with, for Texas Scorecards. She does a lot. And so, I can't remember the slogan that they have for her, the feistiest Latina in the state of Texas or something like that. But anyway, it's going to be great. And so we're excited to have her, and we hope that y'all get online and sign up to be there. We'll have seats and tables, and so it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Curtis, thank you. And I didn't do very well. For those of you who may not know, Curtis is the chair of the Bastrop County Republican Party, and my wife is waving at me. Hi, honey. Ask her to sedate. Do what?
Ask Curtis the date.
Oh.
Oh, I thought I gave that. I'm sorry. It's September the 20th. September the 20th. It's on a Saturday. And so September 20th. I believe it opens at 5 o'clock. So anyway, be there, be square.
And it'll be on the website.
Everything is on our website.
Yes. It's on the website and the calendar. Okay, and I've not done this before, but I think it's important because these meetings don't just happen. Linnell Beckles is right there. He sets up the cameras, makes all this work. Round of applause. And you know, the videos that we posted out to YouTube, those don't just happen. I mean, Linnell takes those, he gets angles, different angles, he blends them together, blends the sound, puts them out there. It's not, you know, you don't just snap your fingers, and we appreciate it. Thank you. And Dan Fisher, audio. He does all the everything else, the microphones, and if you can think of a way to make it happen, he makes it happen. Rob Humphrey is not here tonight. He's actually out of town. Communications, he does a variety of things, emails, and generally takes care of that laptop. Mark and Britta Treat, I'm saying they're the guest table leads. There are several folks there. But the nice thing is I can just show up here and grab a microphone and say a few words, and all these folks make it happen, and we appreciate it. Who? Oh, I know. Yeah, next time. Yeah, always. Financial support, we have dues-paying members, and donations are always welcome at the sign-up at the guest table. Tonight's Debbie Wuthnow, which you already know. Lieutenant Alan West is going to be shooting at the Lee County Republican Party out at the Sheriff's Shooting Range in Lee County. Should be fun. It's in our emails if you miss it, but that should be a blast. You really want to be there. I'm going. I mean, it's what, $30, Tom? $30. For $30, you go out, you get a hamburger or something, and you get to shoot. You got to bring your own ammo. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's be clear. And upcoming meetings. You can go to the website and see what the upcoming meetings are. And you know, I mentioned the YouTubes that Linnell sets up for us and stuff. These work out really well. You can go back if you're wondering what someone said or thought they said or did not say. go out there and look at it. Or if you miss a meeting. Now, I'm not going to beat this to death. We've talked about the scores. I have a reason for leaving this in there this time. The rankings in BISD are not ideal. We need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And Dale Burke, who most everyone here knows, was kind enough to send us a list of opportunities where people can get involved in BISD to help out. Getting involved in volunteering for the opportunities I'm going to show you, that's not the entire solution. But that's certainly part of the solution. If we all get involved and help out, then we know what's going on. We know where the kids' heads are. We know that's the only way to do it. And I'm happy to share these. If anyone wants to email the info at Bastrop CC, I can share these with you. We actually have a group we pulled together of about a dozen of us. We're working on ideas. Several of them are here tonight. We're working on ideas to help out BISD. And a subcommittee's peeled off of that with 2 judges, a defense attorney for minors, 2 school board members, and 1 other lady. And we're working on ideas to bring control to the classroom. That's a very specific committee because these attorneys, they know why these kids come to them. They don't want to see the kids. They've got ideas about how we can keep the kids from winding up being sent to the attorneys so they have to go to detention, to juvenile, it's just, but so we're working on a number of things. I bring this up. Please email, call, text. If you want to get involved and make a difference, this is somewhere you can make a difference. And now for a few words from John Messenger.
Hi again. First off, I want to thank everybody for all of your support last campaign. If you remember, I was the Republican candidate for the 3rd Court of Appeals last time around. If you also remember, that court had 4 seats that were open on its 6th justice court. I was the only Republican who ran for any of them. And that's kind of the state of things here. Fortunately, because of all the hard work of people here in groups like yours, we closed the gap by more than half over what it's been since 2018. Republicans for that court have been losing by about 4.5 to 5.5 points, and I got over 49% of the vote last time around. Thank you. Oh, you can clap for yourselves. I was a guy driving around 24 counties. Y'all did all the hard work with the down ballot votes to get everything working. So that's, in real terms, I lost by 24,000 votes. So I think with a little bit more hard work, mostly in counties other than yours, we can find 12,001 votes, and the next Republican to run for that should be able to win. That Republican is not going to be me. I've decided, I prayed for another opportunity to serve, and not long after things unfolded, the election took place, the dust settled, one of the judges on our high criminal court decided he's not going to run for re-election. So Dave Newell's not running. I immediately filed to take his place. So for the last 4 months, I have been the only candidate for place 9 on the Court of Criminal Appeals. Debbie wants to clap. Thank you. I've been going to Debbie's church for about 12 years. This is why she's so supportive. It's a statewide race. If you remember last time, I was driving around with petitions to get signed, and I don't have any here because I only need 50. But I need 50 from each of the 15 judicial districts around the state. So I will be in El Paso and Amarillo and Beaumont, and I'll be down at the border. That's what I'm doing. I'm already 4,600 miles into this campaign. And I have push cards around. If you can look in the back, and at the back of the room, I've got 3 small children. So 1 day a week I'm going out of town as my job and my wife will allow. I joke with people I would still like to be married at the end of this campaign. And I've assured Kerry that they have voters down at the Gulf, so we'll be going to the beach to do some campaign trips now and again. So I will be back. I am just running around to get on the primary ballot for December. I don't know that I'm going to have an opponent, but I still need to do all the work. And to get it done right, to go and collect the signatures in person, to meet people out of this region, because I've made a lot of great relationships with people in Central Texas, but to do this right, $25,000, maybe $30,000 once you include the filing fee, the conventions that I need to go to, the dinners. Just mileage is going to be $10,000 or $15,000. And this is the worst part about campaigning. If I could self-finance it, I would. Don Huffines can. I can't swing that. So there's a QR code on the back of the cards. $25 goes a long way just to keep things rolling. There are a bunch of people in here. If I average $25, that'd be $400 or $500. So anything helps, and because the bigger problem, if I can become the nominee, which would be as early as the filing deadline in December, then the institutional money can step in. But great groups like the Republican women's groups, they're 501c3s. They can't support anybody until it's the only Republican in that race. So I have to stretch my money as much as I can to get to that point, at which point the institutional money comes forward. So everyone supported me so many different ways last campaign. If you can support me just a little bit now here, I think it could pay off big. So I've got more push cards if you have a friend. Yes? Everybody on the court is Republicans. And this is, can I have like one more minute? Debbie, I shouldn't tell. Okay, thank you, Debbie. Here's the thing, and I tried to make this point when I ran last time. Our third court of appeals, which sits in Austin, is our regional court. It's all Democrat. I didn't run against somebody there because people with D's next to their names are all idiot communists. Some of them, you have Democrat friends, I'm sure. And maybe you can't figure out why they're Democrats, but there are a lot of decent people doing it. I picked somebody who was genuinely bad at his job. And something y'all have learned, painfully sometimes, is having an R next to your name doesn't make you magically conservative or good at your job. And so we've had a court that I think it's 9 members. It's the sister court to the Supreme Court. So 9 members, every 2 years, 3 of them are up for re-election. They're all Republican. I have a lot of interaction with them because I work at the state prosecuting attorney's office, and we represent the state in front of that court. I've been there 14 and a half years. I've had a lot of interaction with these judges, a lot of social occasions. They're all very nice. I think they're all God-fearing. They're all pretty smart. None of them are dummies, and I think almost all of them work really hard. And still a lot of the decisions, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, have not been decisions that I think any of you would agree with. I certainly disagreed with them, and in fact, I've been on the losing end of a lot of them. And that's just how it is. You can have nice people trying to do an important job well, and it just doesn't work out. And I grew up in New Jersey, and my favorite expression in Texas is "bless your heart," because that's it. And look, there are so few people who want to do public service, and there's a circle of people who are really good at it, and the overlap, it's not as big as you want it to be sometimes. And so that's where I'm at. I've been watching it for all these years, and it's put up or shut up time. So they're working hard, but these decisions, they're just not the sort of decisions you would expect Republicans to make, and it makes it more difficult for judges to know what rulings to make at trial. It makes it more difficult for police to know what to do on a case, and frankly, it does a disservice to victims in Texas. And so, again, nice people. You would like them if you met them. I think it would be better if the court changed, and so I'm just trying to be that change. Yes. I am incredibly early on this. So I am running around to do the filing deadline by December to be on the primary ballot next March. God willing, if I'm the candidate, I'll be on the November 2026 ballot. Thank you. Before last time around, I don't know how many of you remember the Stevens decision from late in 2021. That's the case in which the Court of Criminal Appeals in an 8-1 decision stripped the Attorney General of his ability to prosecute election crimes. We've got a very decentralized system of prosecution. It's generally speaking county-based, usually district, but coextensive with county. But for 70 years, the Attorney General had the ability to prosecute that. And the court took it away. And you can look at the decision, you can decide for yourself whether or not it made any sense. But since then, more people have been paying attention to that court. And I had a friend of mine say, ever since then, the court, it's gotten so political. Like, Well, it's a statewide elected office. It should be political. The most important people in Texas politically should be paying attention to this court, because I know it doesn't handle business law, and I know it doesn't handle tort suits, and I know it doesn't handle regulations. And thankfully, I'm hoping nobody in here has ever been the victim of a serious crime. I'm sure somebody here has had stuff stolen from them, hit and runs, things like that, but that's why not a lot of people pay attention to this court, because thankfully you haven't been dragged through it. But the time when you figure out that something's gone wrong and there's an opinion that becomes big enough that everybody starts talking about it, and you say, what can we do about it? The answer is usually go back in time 6 years and vote differently. So I just want everyone to pay attention, and you've been very gracious with your time. The high courts choose how much of the intermediate courts to review. Trial court, intermediate court, high court. They've been doing about 30 cases a year. They review a lot of writs. It's a different thing. People who sit in prison and they've already been through the system. But the things that you normally think about, somebody gets convicted, they get their conviction reversed, and then the state tries to get it unreversed. They do about 30 cases a year. They used to do 100. But even if they got back to their full potential, that's a tiny, tiny percentage of all the cases that happen. The real work that happens is in your trial courts. So please don't assume that, well, we elected Jimmy Blacklock and everything's going to be fine on the civil side, or we've re-elected Kevin Yeary and things are going to be fine. There's only so much they can do at the top level. It's just like the slide you had with the school board. You start with your kids. You start with the things that are happening here. I'm happy to sit in over here and help make it easier for everybody else, because that's just the gifts God has given me have pointed in this direction. But please do not sleep on your local elections and for your judicials, and I hope they come by to talk to y'all. Thank you. God bless you.
John, thank you. And now for the main event. Debbie is up. Debbie started out with, I'm going to tell them what you know. Tell me how bad this is. So she started out in the mailroom. She has an IT background, a little bit more than mail, and started and progressed through the iVoterGuide group and has become the president over how many years? President for 6 years, and it took your 10 years to get there or something. So she knows iVoterGuide. She knows how it works. She has a master's in IT. So she gets it. So having said that, and God appointed her there. And Debbie, please. Debbie Wuthnow.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Mel, for inviting me. So my goal is to kind of share a little bit. I guess the title I shared is The Road to 2026 Starts Today, and it starts with you. I know John's already on the road. He's moving fast. And let me step through my slides. So I'm the president of iVoterGuide.com. God called me into this role at the technical mailroom. I view this as a calling. I am on God's conveyor belt trying to keep my feet underneath me. I spent 20 years as a stay-at-home mom before asking God what to do with my empty nest, never guessing that it would be this. But I love to encourage and equip voters to vote wisely. So iVoterGuide points to a quote that Bill Federer said. Oh, we're going to start first with some voting statistics. Can't see my slides. There they are. So on average, I hope you guys know all this, but only 65% of Americans are registered to vote. So that means 35% aren't even registered to participate in the process. We just had a presidential election, but in this next upcoming election, which we consider a midterm, it's an off-year election. The average turnout's only going to be 40% of the registered voters. So that's 40% of the 65%, which means that about 26% of Americans, 1 in 4, will participate in the elections. And that's next November. That's in the general election. There's another election before that. But before this, that means because we only have 50%, it chooses the winner, 13% of voters, of Americans are going to choose who wins in the primary. And you know that the way that districts are drawn, the gerrymandering thing, if you hear the debate that goes on, 80 to 90% of legislative seats are actually won in the primary, not in November. because they're drawn to favor one party over the other. So 13% of voters are choosing in the 11th. So primary elections happen. Next year it's going to be in March in Texas, and average turnout in a primary is only 20% of registered voters. So we can find that to be average. Some states are higher, some are lower, but average is 20%, which means that only 14% of those who are eligible are choosing who the winners are going to be. Those are the ones who vote, and 7% are choosing the winner. So it's really important. It shows you if you really want a good bargain, you want to get the most value for your buck, you vote in the primary, and you tell all your family and your friends to vote in the primary. So there's other elections that happen. We had them in Texas just recently. They're local and school board elections. You think more people vote or less people vote? Way less. So the average is just 6% of registered voters who participate in local and school board elections. 6% means that there's only 4% of registered voters are voting in these elections, or of voters that are eligible to vote are voting in these elections, and 2% are choosing the winner. When we look at what's going on our school boards, the liberals that have taken over, the teachers' unions, the educational establishment, the educrats, as I've heard them called, that explains it. Most of us are sitting home, and those activists are participating, and they're getting elected. There's another concept you've probably heard of. It's an undervote. Is anybody here an undervoter? Anybody know what an undervoter is? Have you ever gone into the ballot and you say, President, got that. Governor, yep, got that. And Senator, I know that. My state representative, I know who I'm going to vote for. County commissioner and district judge and school board and all these other races. You don't know who those people are. I've never even seen their names. Oh, I did see a sign, but is that enough? And you leave it blank, right? That's called an undervote. And on average, 30 to 40% of votes, of ballots, have an undervote on them. So this was not a problem of motivating people to get to the polls and to cast their ballot. They're there. They're voting. It shows to me a lack of information. They didn't know who to vote for, which I can, on the flip side, read as an opportunity to give them information to identify who to vote for on their full ballot. So when a ballot, a race, is a nonpartisan race, like many school board races, like many city council races, where you don't have an R or a D behind a name, all you see is a name, you know even less about this person, that undervoting percentage is about 50%. Another opportunity to provide information to voters to make an impact. Okay, so here's my Bill Federer quote. This is really sums up the reason that iVoterGuide exists. Bill said that the most important thing is to lead people to Christ. We're a Christian ministry. We still agree that's the most important. But he said the second most important thing is to preserve the freedom to do the most important thing. And I think in recent years we've seen those freedoms attacked. Schools were churches were shut down, schools were shut down, people were forced to get vaccines. Our freedoms were being attacked, and it was being attacked by those we the people elected to represent us. So how do we the people combat that tyranny? We vote wisely. So, and God actually has criteria or qualifications for those we elect. And as a Christian ministry, I'm going to take the privilege to share with you some of God's word. In the book of Exodus, if you're familiar with when Moses led the Israelites out of towards the promised land, Moses was in charge. And he's sitting down and judging between all the people, all their disputes. His father-in-law Jethro shows up, who is a priest, and says, Moses, you can't be deciding everybody's decisions. You're going to wear yourself out. He says, you need to select out of these people able men, men who fear God, men of truth, who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as leaders over thousands, as officials over hundreds, as officials over 50s and over 10s. That sounds to me like a system of government. And this came from God's word. So that's what Moses did. So let's talk about what those qualifications mean. So we're supposed to choose able men. What does that mean? People that are qualified, people that know what the job is, like John. John's a great example of people who understand what the job means, and they meet the qualifications. They have the experience, they have the knowledge to apply that to that position. But not just able men, they need to have the backbone to do what's right. They need to see what's wrong and want to fix that wrong. So they need to be able to make the tough votes and the tough calls, be that school board and reining in some of the spending. Whatever that role is, they need to have the backbone to do what's right and not just be a yes man. They need to be men of God. Ideally, as a Christian group, I'd rather have people who share my love of Christ and understand that the priorities are God first, and then others, and then myself, that they're not in it for themselves. But they also need to be men of truth. To me, this is another way to reinforce godly men, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. But taken at face value, a man of truth tells the truth, right? They don't lie about their qualifications. They don't even misrepresent their opponent, but they tell the truth. And also forgot the other thing I was going to say. They don't misrepresent their person, and they don't say different things to different audiences. They don't flip-flop their positions, and they say one thing to one group and the same thing to another group, and don't say something different. So those are men of truth. But they also those who hate dishonest gain. So that some translations say covetousness. To me, that means people who don't like corruption, and they can't be corrupted or bought off. So we want patriots. We need able men of God, men of truth, who hate dishonest gain. We need more patriots who will fight for what's right in our schools, in our communities, in our state districts, at our state house, and at the federal level. But how can you find who those candidates are? And that's why iVoterGuide exists. So we research candidates on the ballot and give you the information about those candidates, where they stand, what their worldview is, what their values are, and what they will stand for if you elect them. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the website. But first, to let you know, our core value, you'll see we are grounded in God, rooted in research. We're a Christian ministry, but we are a research group. And our first value is objective truth, because we apply God's unchanging truth to what we look for in candidates in all areas of our life. Okay, so this is what iVoterGuide looks like as a website. It is there to provide you a personalized ballot. It's designed to be easy to use, so you enter your voting address, and then we just show you the races or the candidates on your ballot. It is free. There is no charge. This is provided by donors and by American Family Association, because we all want people to vote wisely. It is also, you'll notice that you may not be able to read it in the upper left. It says English. It is available in both English and in Spanish. So everything I show to you is available in Spanish as well. If I clicked on Spanish, the whole website translates. So it is provided. God had us do this for the Hispanic community, because they share our pro-life and our conservative values. So on the home page, if you chose not to enter your address, maybe you don't know what's going on at this time, you can scroll down and see a map of the United States. iVoterGuide seeks to be a one-stop shop for all the election resources you need. So you can click on any state and see any recent elections we have covered, special elections in this case that we're doing in 2025, the school board elections that we covered in May. But also we have some other resources available at the bottom of that little pop-up when you click on a state. So if you have a friend who's not registered, go to iVoterGuide.com, click on your state. We'll send you to where you need to go to get registered. If you don't know where your polling place is, or you need to apply for an absentee ballot, let's say you're going to be out of state, you don't want to go for early voting, we have all those links available at iVoterGuide.com. But our real goal and our whole purpose is to provide each voter in America. We provide voter guides for every address in America, including yours. So we give you a personalized ballot. And it starts with your federal candidates, so we cover all the federal candidates at Senate and Congress. We cover statewide candidates, and I'll give you the states, but in about 40 states, we cover all the statewide candidates, including judicial candidates like John's race. We cover state legislative candidates in 36 states, and we cover also selected ballot measures and key school boards. So you'll notice on the right side of that screen is a screenshot from the Arizona Republican primary. The little buttons at the top say federal, statewide, state. You can use those to navigate down on the page. And then for every race, you'll see the race, and you'll see each candidate. You'll see a green check mark next to any research item we found on that candidate. And then you'll notice there's that gas gauge looking thing that's there. So what iVoterGuide that does that's unique is we not only research the candidates, but we evaluate almost 13,000 candidates in every election cycle, so that the average voter that's not super engaged can kind of see where they land on the political spectrum. And this gauge ranges, it originally was from verified liberal to verified conservative on a 7-point scale. The left went so far left that we had to add another rating that I say broke the gauge. So we had to add a far left rating because, as you know, they became just socialist and progressive and Green New Deal and all of that. So we added a far far left rating and a far right rating. And this, for the average voter, is what helps them to know who to vote for. And iVoterGuide, for those of us in the Republican Party in the general election, if there's an R behind their name, that's who we vote for. When you really need help is in the primary election, and iVoterGuide does cover the Republican primary. So this is a tool that you can even send your infrequent, low propensity primary voters to iVoterGuide. And because most people that don't vote in the primary don't, because they don't know who to vote for. They don't have information, and iVoterGuide has that information. So not only is the gauge there, but you can see all the research and all the information for yourself. So let me step through a little bit of what that profile page looks like. We create a profile for every candidate. It starts with their biography of, where'd they go to school and what's their work history, what's their background. And then if you can see where that arrow points, we've got a series of links to their website, to their social media, to their X, to their LinkedIn, to their YouTube, wherever they've got it. We're trying to aggregate all the intelligence on this candidate into one place to give it to you, the voter, so you can determine who you want to vote for. Now, in the primary, there might be multiple candidates that are rated conservative, but you got to pick. So this is where we've got it all in one place, so you can go look through, where did they give money to? Have they voted? How have they voted? So let's look at the other information. As you scroll down that page, the most important thing that you can look at to determine what a candidate's going to do is what they've done. Right? So our philosophy is don't look at just what they say they're going to do, look at what they've done. The most important data point is a scorecard. So we have almost 1,000 organizations, both liberal and conservative, that look at legislators, either at the state level or the federal level, and they score them on votes. How did they vote on legislation? How did they vote on the speaker? What is important to that organization, they score them. And iVoterGuide has gathered them all into this one place. And we group them by conservative and by liberal. We also gather endorsements. We have thousands, probably 10,000 organizations and individuals that endorse a candidate. That's kind of like a job reference, if you think about it. You guys endorse candidates. What an endorsing group you look to, they're going to actually talk to the candidate. They're going to vet the candidate. Do they align with their values? So that's like that person saying, this is my favorite candidate in this race. As you scroll down, you will see contribution information. So what somebody does with their pocketbook is pretty telling about what's important to them. So we have downloaded the entire database from the Federal Election Commission, which is where all the federal candidates have to file their reports and all the nationwide organizations have to file their reports, as well as every state where we cover statewide and state legislative candidates. We've downloaded the campaign finance data from that state. That was actually one of my first jobs when I came to iVoterGuide, was to design and program that system. So we know not only who's given to the campaign of a candidate, we know who they have as an individual have supported, which is really telling. Put your money where where your values are. Very telling to us. We also gather other information, so anything that doesn't fit in those other categories. Maybe a candidate was on a candidate forum, or they had an article written about them, or there's a link to something else they wrote. Any other things that we can find, we drop it into our other information bucket. And then the final item, which it's at the bottom of the list for a reason, because a questionnaire is just what a candidate says they're going to do. The least important thing is what they say they're going to do. You want to look at what they've done. But we do want to hear what they say. So every candidate gets the opportunity to answer our questionnaire. It's a broad spectrum questionnaire, about 35 questions. John will probably tell me it's too long, but we cover right to life, religious liberty, elections and voting, national security, equality, Second Amendment, about you. We actually have a different questionnaire for every level of office. So we have federal questionnaire, we have a statewide questionnaire, we have an education questionnaire for school boards, we have a judicial questionnaire that's just about judicial philosophy because they don't want to, answer a question on something they might rule on. We actually have a DA questionnaire. We have, based upon the responsibilities for that role. But I will tell you that we're trying to get at not just their political positions, but their worldview. Because there are positions that will come on the horizon that we have no idea what's coming. Who saw COVID coming? Mask mandates, churches shut down. So if we understand their worldview or what motivates them in life, that will give us a better indicator of do they share our values on all those other positions and maybe how they will want to vote. So my favorite category is our values questions. So we ask spiritual beliefs and values. We ask our parents, the arbiter of what their children learn. We ask about the boys and girls bathrooms. We ask a lot of those social questions that don't fall into other categories. And you can read all those answers for yourself. The candidates answer it online. We log it. We know it's done in their own words. So iVoterGuide, just to summarize, looks at actions, not just promises. It is nonpartisan because it is just research. It is honestly just as useful to the left as it is to the right because we're just seeking to provide truth. We're not telling you who to vote for. We're just giving you the tools and the resources to decide for yourself who you want to vote for. We go to conservative and liberal sources. We go to federal and state organizations. We have over 1,000 legislative scorecards, 277 million donation records in our database, and that is growing every 2 weeks as we update some of that data. Over 10,000 endorsing organizations, our broad spectrum survey, and then the candidate evaluations. So we evaluated over 13,000 candidates each election cycle. We're up to almost 70,000 candidates that we've evaluated over time. So getting ready for 2026. Some people are getting ready faster than others. John's on the road already, driving all over Texas. So let's talk a little bit about the elections that are going on this year and as we get ready for 2026. But I also want to flag for you, there's a birthday coming up. And how can we use that as we inspire and educate Americans? It's the 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence, which is the birthday of America. And this is a fabulous opportunity to teach American history that has been, shall we say, misrepresented in the educational system, to help people understand that freedom must be fought for, and we have to work hard to maintain it. So pay attention to what's going on. Patriot Academy, I know Rick Green has been here, has got some fabulous tools and resources to get ready for that anniversary. And I would encourage you to pay attention to that, to think about what the Declaration means. And we're going to be talking about it a lot on our social media and our emails because a Constitution has never lived this long. This is a unique opportunity to fix some of the indoctrination and the misinformation that has gone out to people who hate America. So let's teach them what it meant, okay? I just had to throw that in. Okay, so as we get ready for 2026, this is what we're going to cover in the 2026 elections. That map is from my homepage, so if you scroll down, you see that. We're going to cover all federal candidates, all the Senate, all the Congress. There are 40 states where we will cover statewide races, and when I say statewide, I mean every statewide race. Board of Public Schools, the Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, the Auditor, the Railroad Commissioner, all those statewide races in all of those 40 states. There are 32 states where we're covering state legislative in 2026. We've got 2 states we're covering this year. There are 2 states who do it in other odd years. So there's 36 total states where iVoterGuide covers all the way down to state legislature. We have started to cover crucial school boards. We started it in 2021. We watched what was going on in Loudoun County when all the parents started to see what their kids were learning when COVID sent them home. Honestly, that was a silver lining of COVID, is that the parents got to see what their kids were being taught. And it was I call it the educational shot heard around the world. So we started covering school boards. We can talk more about the criteria of which school boards we cover. And just this year, we've started to layer on top of those school boards that we determined to cover, and we add municipal races. So we don't always evaluate the municipal races, but we do research the candidates at the municipal level. And as every voter has gone into the ballot box and read a ballot measure and read it and went, what does that mean? What does that do? They kind of word them confusingly. It's like a lawyer wrote them, right? So we've started to cover ballot measures because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of lying that goes on in ballot measures. So when we cover a ballot measure, our goal is to start with, this is what the ballot says. This is what you're going to read when you go into the ballot box. But this is what a yes means. A yes will accomplish this. This is the purpose for the yes. This is what a no means, and make that pretty clear to you. And then we're going to give you the arguments for the different sides. Fight for each side, and they tell you why you need to vote yes or why you need to vote no. We're going to give you not only what they're saying, but who's saying it. And then most importantly, as iVoterGuide does, we're going to look at the money. Who's funding each side of it? That makes it pretty clear who's behind the pro-abortion, pro-life measures. And so who's funding each side, and then who's endorsing each side. That doesn't always get included in some of those radio ads and flyers that you see on some of those ballot measures. So again, we don't tell you which side to vote for, but we do tell you a yes is conservative and a no is liberal, or vice versa, so that you can really be informed when you go into the ballot box. There are some ballot measures that will be on the ballot in Texas in November. We will be covering at least some of them, if not all. We tend to cover the ones related to life and election integrity and key social issues. So we have covered marijuana issues, we have covered, I can't even remember some of the others. So some of the ones that have a very clear conservative and liberal position, we will do the research on those positions. Some of those that could go either way, we tend to not do. Honestly, it's free, so we're donor supported, so we try to be as wise with the resources we have as we can, right? So, where am I going next? So in 2025, we are covering the statewide races in New Jersey and Virginia. They have their full statewide and state legislative races this year. In fact, Virginia's primary is tomorrow. You could pray for Virginia, which is on the cusp in that state, because they have a term limit for governor. Do you know what the term is? 1. So Glenn Youngkin got in for fighting for parental rights. He's only allowed 1 term. So they've got a new governor that's running in Virginia. We also cover special elections. So if there's ever a special election in your area, iVoterGuide will cover it. If we covered it in the last election cycle, we've got dozens that we're covering across the year. I would encourage you to sign up for our email list. Not everybody is aware when there's a special election for them. We will email you when that, if you're on our list, we'll let you know when there's a special election that we're covering for you. And then we're also covering local elections this year because those happen in a very confusing and you just don't even know what's going on. So we've covered the Public Service Commissioner in Georgia. We've covered some school board districts and municipal in Pennsylvania. Kansas is amazingly logical, and they were by state statute require all school boards and municipalities to hold their elections in the odd-numbered years with the primary in August and the general election in November. They are the only state in the nation that does that. Everybody else does it by district, by county, by whatever, and you just never know what's going on. North Carolina, we will be covering school boards there. These are ones, honestly, that still haven't happened yet. We've covered a whole bunch between January and now. There are others, and Texas will be covering more in November. So I wanted to show you a couple of case studies of the impact that iVoterGuide has had. This is a statewide race in the Supreme Court in North Carolina, just to show you the opportunity that a small percentage of informed voters and the impact they can have on a statewide election. We'll see if it runs.
Do you know that your state Supreme Court has the power to determine everything from election results and gerrymandering cases all the way to the protection of the unborn? Since the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs overturning Roe v. Wade, North Carolina is one of the last states in the South where abortion is legal. It's now called a haven for abortion access in the South. When the question of life inevitably comes before the North Carolina Supreme Court, what will the court look like? Before the 2020 elections, the North Carolina Supreme Court was a 6-1 progressive populist court. 3 of those seats were on the ballot in 2020, including the seat of Chief Justice. In the battle for Chief Justice, a candidate dubbed the next Ruth Bader Ginsburg went up against a proven conservative. The more conservative candidate won by just 401 votes. This was the closest race in the 2020 cycle, one of the closest in North Carolina state history. And iVoterGuide played an important part. Over 5% of North Carolina voters used iVoterGuide, and all 3 races were decided on less than 2.5 percentage points. But even with these victories, the court still had a 4-3 activist majority in 2022, and they were able to strike down the district maps drawn by the legislature. They also ruled as unconstitutional a law requiring a photo ID in order to vote, opening up elections to fraud. 2 more seats were on the ballot in 2022, and both were won by conservatives. Once again, iVoterGuide played a decisive role. These close races were decided by about 2.5% of voters, where almost 5% of voters used iVoterGuide. In just 2 cycles, the North Carolina Supreme Court went from a 6-1 activist majority to a 6-1 conservative majority. Just 2 months after the election, the new conservative court surprised everyone and in a rare move, reheard the case about voter ID laws. The decision was reversed, and requiring a photo ID to vote is not only constitutional, but it's now the law. It took only 2 election cycles to put control in North Carolina. Each win is critical. That's why we invest time and resources into these contests and why we need motivated biblical voters in every election. iVoterGuide will continue to feed truth to the silent majority of Christian voters. Since most judges on the ballot run as nonpartisan, iVoterGuide research equips biblical-minded voters to identify those who will follow the Constitution and identify those who legislate from the bench. By using iVoterGuide, you're playing a deciding role in hundreds of races across the United States and impacting thousands more where we help conservative candidates get elected. We've seen the proof. We know that together we can make a world of difference in 2024. Use iVoterGuide. Vote wisely.
Thank you. So that was pretty encouraging. It took eternal vigilance, right? Nothing happens overnight. But once you win it, you have to fight to keep it. So another example of an impact we've had is in Katy, which is in the Houston area. There was a school board that had a liberal majority. In the 2022 and 2023 election, we helped to get 4 conservatives elected to the school board. In May 2020, Victor Perez was elected the president. We rated him conservative, and he went on to be the president of that school board. A year later, 3 more seats were won by conservatives, which gave them a very slim 4-3 conservative majority. It had been a 6 or 7-0 liberal school board. And in all of those cases, 5% of voters used iVoterGuide, and the races were all decided by less than 2% of voters. So it's possible to make big change. And then shortly after that May election, or that August election in 2023, the board adopted a pro-parent gender priority. And I'm going to read to you a quote from Victor Perez. He said, "New board president Victor Perez said, 'We raise our children to never keep secrets. Let's not keep secrets from parents. Let's encourage a culture of collaboration between parents and staff and make sure parents have full knowledge of what's going on with their child. After all, we have to remember that these children belong to the parents, not to the schools.'" So we applauded that statement. We applauded what he did, but the left paid attention, and they're not done. So they challenged Victor Perez this year when he ran for ballot, and he lost because the turnout was low, and the Democrats made a big difference. So at that time, he made a big impact. He restored the pro-parent gender priority. But we have to be eternally vigilant because every progress can be lost if we forget to pay attention. So I don't know if what happened in this area in the May elections, we covered about 20 different school boards and layered the municipal races on top of that. The generalized summary is that it was not a good election year for conservatives. There were many conservatives who lost in many areas, Victor Perez being one of them. So I've kind of collected some lessons learned from some consultants and people on my team, and I just want to make you guys aware of things that this is the climate. This is kind of where we are. So the first thing they noticed was that the Democrats just did a better job of get out the vote. The educational establishment, do you know what the largest voting bloc in a school board election is? It's the teachers, the administration. And frequently that's all who votes, and that's how we end up where we are. And so if our side says, yeah, we're done, we've got good people on the board, then we lose the ground we've gained. The other factor is that Republicans tend to say, President Trump won. We're done. We've got somebody in the White House. And they're like, we fought the battle, we're not just going to participate. And those low voter numbers are what turn the tide, right? So we have to figure out a way to overcome that fatigue and continue to wake up voters. Also, the executive orders about the educational department, when we think about school board races, they look at all the executive orders of the EOs that have come out of the Trump White House. They're like, he's going to dismantle the Department of Education. He said boys can't be in girls' sports. He's, 2 genders. It's all clear. It's all done. Well, none of that's codified. That can be changed at the next administration with the stroke of a pen. We need to fight for all those policies in our schools, in our states, and in Congress to get those laws overturned. So we cannot be complacent. The other thing they found is that many candidates did not run good campaigns. Some of them didn't even have contact information in their filing papers. John, I'm sure John will have contact information in his filing papers. We can't find them to send them a questionnaire if they don't have good contact information. If they don't have a website that clearly states why they're running and what are their issues. What is it that's motivating them to run for office? There was a quote that I didn't mention earlier, but President Reagan said there are 2 people who run for office, somebody who wants to be somebody and somebody who wants to do something. I want to vote for somebody who wants to do something, not somebody who just wants to say, I'm a congressman, or I'm the judge in the country, or I'm a senator. We want somebody who wants to fight for our communities, fight for our schools, fight for our children. So make sure if you're a candidate that you include information on the issues and why you're voting. Why you're running for office. Make sure you talk to voters. You can't just go to GOP clubs. You've got to actually get to the voters and make sure that they will turn out to vote for you. And they found that candidates were reluctant to talk about the issues of why they were running. They just would go say, I'm a nice guy, right? But they need to know why. Hope I didn't step on any toes. So here's how we can get ready for 2026. And I know you guys work in these arenas, but we have to have good candidates on the ballot. The first time we covered school board races in Texas in 2021, this is in Texas, in a third of the races, there was not a conservative on the ballot. If we don't have good conservatives on the ballot, we can't vote for conservatives, right? When there is a conservative on the ballot, the liberals certainly going to challenge them. That's what happened to Victor Perez. In about a third of races, they're uncontested because nobody even files to run. So please pray about, who do you know that might be a good candidate? Maybe it's you. People are being challenged to step up and run. And a third of races are uncontested, so nobody even files to run. There are groups who train candidates, so make sure that the candidates know to train and how to run a good campaign. There are many organizations that have trainings. I'm sure you bring people in. Leadership Institute has training. There's something called Kingdom in Politics. FRC has training classes. If you're going to run for office, learn how to do it well so that you can be successful. And then I would say iVoterGuide, that gauge that I talked about, that evaluation, that is done by volunteers. And all of you are capable of being those volunteers to help us to research those candidates, to dig into what they do. We do require an application because we want like-valued, like-minded people as our panelists. We will train you. We will actually vet you to make sure that you have conservative values. And we'll train you on what to look for. And then we'll assign you about 30 candidates where you will read their Facebook. You will read their tweets. You will read their website. You'll do some internet searching to see what you can find. Ideally, we want to assign you candidates in your area, so you might even know them and go to candidate forums, because it takes some detective work sometimes to find, especially on local candidates, where they stand. So I would encourage you to be an iVoterGuide panelist. We have about almost 1,000 of them nationwide, and they serve a very important role because that's how we're able to assign that rating that is so helpful to the average voter. And I would encourage you to be an informed voter and to use iVoterGuide. Share it with other people who are not as informed as you are, because you're obviously very engaged and informed in the policy. I just say check iVoterGuide first and then go look at your sample ballot and do the research. But you need to be informed, and you need to encourage informed voting. And then turning out the vote. I would also tell you that iVoterGuide is donor supported. If you would so feel led, your support would mean enable us to continue doing what we're doing and to hopefully even grow into other areas. So on our website, we have tools to help you in becoming more active. If you, on the top menu, click Take Action, this is on our page, and there's a tile there called Become a Panelist. It tells you more about what's involved in being a panelist, and it's where you could find the application to become a panelist. We have resources available for you to share with your church or with your neighborhood, just like the flyers that are up and down your table, just to tell you what we've got. There's a flyer that's kind of like the rat card John has, just says what iVoterGuide is. You can pass that out to people. None of iVoterGuide's materials that we provide are going to include candidate names on them, because with 13,000 candidates, it would be an encyclopedia. We really encourage people to go to the website and get their personalized ballot, which is easier to use. You can advertise iVoterGuide with your jewelry. There is a wristband in the little envelope. You can wear my little Vote Wisely iVoterGuide jewelry. And then when we first began doing iVoterGuide, we haven't even really done a lot of promotion. It's really been grassroots. So it began with one of our panelists sent me this picture. She must have gone to a lot of swim meets, because she pulled out her white shoe polish and she wrote iVoterGuide.com on her car. And that's how she told people about it. So you have one step up. This little white thing that's on the table says Vote Wisely, iVoterGuide.com. So it's a real passive way. You stick it on the outside of your car and you kind of let people know there's a tool available to you. I have more if somebody wants one and they're not on the table. The next thing somebody sent was they actually made a yard sign, and it's at iVoterGuide.com, and then they made flyers, and they passed them out to 20 churches in their neighborhood. So there are creative ideas. We do have a yard sign you can download from our website, and you can use that now. And then this family got very creative. She goes, I can't really do much, but there's a Labor Day parade, and I can do a float in the parade. So we designed a banner she hung on the side of her hay wagon, and we gave her iVoterGuide shirts, and she put all her grandkids in the hay wagon, and she passed out iVoterGuide materials. This was in Wichita, Kansas, to let them know, and she got second place in that parade. So we've moved beyond. We now have actual, different things you can pass out. The other thing I have here, and I only have 2 packs of them, is we have door hangers that just say, vote wisely. This is what iVoterGuide has. So if anybody wants those and is going to block walk. And there's a booklet that's on your table. It's called Whose Side Are They On? We have a whole bunch of people on our team who know a lot about school boards. And so this is an ebook that we wrote that I've actually printed copies of it. And it tells you what to look for in school board candidates. It even gives questions to ask them. You're welcome to take these. I've got more of them if you want them. You can download it from the website if you want to share it with other people. But it's all about why is it important, and what do we look for in good school board candidates? So our goal is really just educated voters in all levels of races. We send out weekly emails that are educational in nature, just letting you know how government works. We've done quizzes on executive powers and how they work. We've done, what does the Bible say about immigration? Are we a republic or a democracy? We're trying to include a short shareable content in emails and get them placed on op-eds, because we really just want not just at election time to vote wisely, but what people need to know how government works and what their role is, because we the people have the highest power if we will just use it. So I think I want to close with, we've educated millions of voters in the last election cycles, and I've been very encouraged to see certain quotes of people I've never met, would love to, Chuck Norris, who said, here's this great tool that you can use, and Life Institute issues. So we partner with like-minded groups. So there's 70 organizations who just tell people, here's a great tool to help you vote wisely. We've looked at who referred people to iVoterGuide, and names that I'm like, wow, Dutch Sheets, Jack Hibbs, Dinesh D'Souza, people who use iVoterGuide. So if they are going to use iVoterGuide, I hope it would help you as well. I encourage you to vote wisely in every election, for every race, and start with iVoterGuide. And remember, I mentioned at the beginning that we're available in Spanish as well. So I'm going to close with this video that we created that's designed to air in Hispanic churches to let them know that there is a tool to help them be good citizens. So I'm happy to answer any questions. iVoterGuide exists as a tool for you, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share.
If anyone asks questions, I have a microphone. I know. You would be on the other side of the room.
Thank you. Very good presentation. It might be kind of early to have an opinion on this, but I'm going to ask anyways. With the SREC over the weekend voting to close the Republican primaries to require that you be a registered Republican to vote in the Republican primary, I'm curious as to what your thoughts might be on how that might impact voter turnout and what we need to be thinking about as strong Republicans in this county to help make sure that we get the right folks registered.
Interesting question. I'm not the political activist, my team is. So I'm going to give you my personal, non-SREC, GOP involved person, which is I know that there are many cases where Democrats will cross the line and vote in the Republican primary and vote for the moderate candidate because they don't want that. So I like that they passed that because the primary is really the only time to move the needle to the right. And if we don't have that, now I get it, I live in Austin. So I'm in Democratic districts. So I know I'm voting in the primary, but it doesn't do much. So there are problems, I see reasons why they do that, but I think that's a good thing. Did I answer your question? Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, I got an email from your organization that you're hiring, and I was just curious if hiring, do you guys hire? I'm right here. I'm right here, sorry. Do you guys hire in all of the states, and so you can be have access to the local elections? Is that what your hiring purposes are for?
Well, our hiring purposes, so thank you for that, and thank you for being on our email list to see that we do that. So iVoterGuide is completely virtual. Everybody works from home, and we have staff members from Florida to Washington State and everywhere in between. So I will tell you that typically we hire from our panelist pool because they are more embedded and they understand. That's really the best pool to hire from. But we need to hire about 6 new lead researchers and a couple of research associates to be able to get ready for 2026. Nobody does what we do, so there's a period of time of training that goes into what we do, and it's also very seasonal, so it's not a full-time position, it's part-time. And it's going to ramp up, and it certainly will be full-time for a brief period of time, and then it will scale back. But I'm trying to remember, you asked, can it be from anywhere? It can be from anywhere. And we will, so if you're interested, go ahead and send you your resume. We'll, for research positions, we give you a competency exercise, which is basically doing research. Can you do research? Because the way that iVoterGuide works internally is we have a staff. It used to be about a dozen people. It's now about 70 part-time staff members. And we have hierarchy over, there's a person who's the lead for a state. And they're basically the project manager for the state. And they have to make sure we've got all the contact information for the candidates. And they reach out to all the candidates. And if you can imagine in Texas, it's 350 candidates they're talking to and communicating with to let them know your survey's ready. And we've got a great system that's all built up to gather all that data. We've got other people who are pulling in campaign finance and pulling in endorsements and pulling in scorecards. And then they manage the whole process of getting the surveys answered, setting up the panels, and recruiting from our people who are training panelists. We've got another team doing that to get the panels that are on there. So it's a critical role. It's a different role. So nobody comes in knowing how we do it because it's really unique. So we're hiring actually starting in August so that we can actually train to be ready to go full steam into 2026. Does that make sense? Any follow-up or anything? No? Okay.
On that subject, would there be any reason that somebody could work for your organization and also work for a candidate's campaign?
That we call that a conflict of interest.
Okay, so you don't.
So ideally, no. And in fact, if you're a panelist and you also work for a candidate campaign, we ask you to recuse yourself from that race, any candidate in that race. We don't want to have any, we're really trying to be objective and truth, and we don't want the slant of, somebody who, this is my favorite candidate because I work for him, coming into play. Does that make sense?
How do you, can we give you names for you to research and put on your website, or how the candidate's selected? For instance, we just had a school board election. It would have been nice to have that information out there.
So we kind of make a determination of, do we have the bandwidth to cover a particular election? So when I said crucial school boards, we have a team. I have a school board lead and researchers on that team, and we have a criteria to look at what districts, number one, are even on the ballot, because it happens at all times throughout the year. And then there are different watch lists out there for the problem, we call them problem children school districts, that have, the pornographic books in the libraries, and they're shutting the parents out of the meetings, and boys and girls bathrooms. We look for, there's multiple groups that are kind of making a watch list, but we also work with grassroots groups, because we don't want to just have a problem child. We want to know somebody's recruiting good candidates to run. So Mel can start to feed me information. I have connections across the nation of groups that we will work with, and we're like, okay, where can we have impact? Where are you getting churches engaged that will tell their congregation to vote? Where are good candidates being recruited to run? If you know Rick Scarborough with Recover America Now, that's where it drips, that he's got churches that are, pastors are engaged and telling their congregation, you guys need to get out and vote. You need to run for school board, and then this congregation, you all need to vote. I'm like, Rick, if you've got a church that's on fire like that, let me know, because that's where we want to come alongside, because we're not recruiting candidates. We're not doing a get out the vote. I call it the body of Christ model. Our lane is to create the voter guide, which will help voters find the good candidates, but we're not taking that on. So we'll work with Mel to figure out, do you have good candidates that are running? Where can we be impactful? And it has to be early enough in my schedule, really, to make sure I've got my internal staff bandwidth to be ready to do that. But we're certainly open to doing that. I know I've worked with people in Georgetown that have fed me information on what's going on there. So it's possible. It's also a bandwidth, which is a funding issue. So there's an element of volunteers. There's an element of, are you doing the get out the vote, the recruiting of candidates, and then the get out the vote thing. Make sense?
Have you considered using AI to help you research through all the Facebook and Twitter and all that sort of stuff?
Short answer is yes. So my background is in computer science, so my eye is on that. We have another organization that's a conservative group they basically are my AI consultants, because the out-of-the-box language learning models will filter out anytime you try to link anything sexual with children, for understandable reasons. So when we're looking for a statement about pornographic books in elementary schools, they will block that out. So he's built us a large learning module that we can upload either a video or a transcript from a school board meeting and find the votes and quotes and the discussions about those issues, so that instead of somebody having to watch a 4-hour school board meeting to find that vote, we can do it in minutes using AI. We also are talking to them about how can we use it to search what's what's out there in the cyberspace about a particular candidate. We do a lot of, AI is a tool. It's not the answer, but it is a tool, and our philosophy is go to the source. So that's why we go to the campaign finance from the source. We would use AI as a tool, and then we still have to go and look at the sources it's pulling in. But yes.
So you've created your own local LLM for,
A consultant is helping me with that, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Are you volunteering to help me with that? I'm very much a body of Christ model. So anybody, I may be the big toe, and I want to work with everybody who can help me do a better job of being a big toe. Make sense?
Circling back around to this conflict of interest thing, are you vetting your panelists in the same way? You're looking at what they've contributed to and how they've voted in primaries and things like that?
We do vet the panelists. We don't go to quite that depth. They have to answer a questionnaire. We call it our leadership questionnaire They have to provide us 3 references, and we call them. So that's really the vetting that we do on the panelist. We don't really look at their campaign finance, although we could.
Okay.
Well, who'd you give to?
You want to be one? Anybody else?
Debbie, would you mind doing the benediction? If you don't mind. I think that'd be awesome if you would.
Lord Jesus, we thank you for this time. I thank you for the call you've placed on all our lives, whether it be to be an activist or a volunteer for iVoterGuide or a candidate for office, Lord. We know that you plan in advance all the works you have ordained for us. We pray that you would give us the courage to step out into those paths. And we just ask that you guide each of our lives, give us protection as we drive home, give us health and comfort. Lord, we seek to glorify you in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.